The top suggested move on Twitter was actually bishop takes h6. And for the record, I'm not certain that's the move I'm most convinced is what I want to play, but for that reason, we're going to take a look anyway at what happens there. So bishop takes h6, and the first thing you have to look at is just simply pawn recapturing g takes h6. And the problem I have with that is that it feels a bit slow because the only check I have in that position, for example, is queen g4 check, which is very swiftly met with probably bishop g7, and I don't really have any follow-up to that. For example, bishop takes h6, g takes h6, queen g4 check, bishop g7, knight f5, over trying to attack the bishop, and then queen f6, I think should be a defense for black. And in that position, I can't see a way for white to add any more pressure onto the g7 square, because there's still a g pawn on the board, so I can't bring a rook across to the g file and just move my king across. And technically, the h file is free, but I'd need h4, h5, h6 before I can get to g7, which is 3 tempi. So I don't really feel like there's a pressing need to analyze beyond that point, other than to say it's not exactly a crushing win for white. But it obviously still looks like a ridiculous amount of pressure.
Okay, your analysis of that line is pretty good. However, one statement you said is just not true. So after bishop takes h6, g takes h6, what sensible checks do you have?
Oh, I guess bishop takes f7 is the only other check in
Bishop
the
takes
position,
f7, queen takes f7 is just winning for black.
right?
But queen g4 and bishop f7 are by no means your only checks in that position.
Really?
Really?
Oh god, that's just... Wait. Wait. This is a sound of me attempting to do analysis. Okay, I completely missed that. So bishop takes h6, pawn takes h6, queen g6 is also a check. And I completely forgot about the skewer. And that...
So is there a difference there after bishop g7, knight f5, queen f6? Do you want to have a look on the board?
I think we might have to have a look on
Let's
the
have
board.
a look
It's
on
been
the
a
board.
long day.
It's been a long day.
All right. So we're saying takes, and just to sort of recap, this is the variation I was trying to look at earlier.
When I don't realistically think white has enough for a piece. So.
Yeah, I mean, got a pawn, but no, you don't even have a pawn, so...
You do have a pawn. I mean, one pawn at the moment. Because you played bishop takes pawn on h6, but...
Oh, okay.
Anyway, black's winning here.
Yeah, sure. So if we did this instead... You know, king h8 isn't out of the question here.
Sure.
But let's take a look at this first. In this position, I have knight takes h6 check, because the queen is blocked from taking the knight.
Uh-huh.
And then I believe if the king moves to h8, you then have knight takes f7 check.
Yeah, that looks very strong.
King back to g8. I'm not 100%... Oh, well, there's all sorts of things you can do there. You can just play knight takes e5 check and, like, dance around. Is that enough for a piece, though, actually? So, I'm going to do this on the board. So, for example... And where does the knight go next?
You have to be careful, because wherever you check, I am going to take off that bishop on b3 with my knight. Unless you go back to h6.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if there's a continuation here.
I don't think there's anything...
Well, I'll tell you what. I can check there, and you're more than welcome to take the bishop off with your knight.
I mean, there's king f8.
Oh, there's... Yeah, this is what I mean by a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
anyway,
so maybe that's just a perpetual.
Yeah. So I don't think knight takes h6 is all that convincing. But it's an interesting idea.
Well, it's certainly something you can do differently.
Well, exactly. So, instead...
Instead, I mean, what else have we got? We have... Bishop takes f7, check, queen takes f7. Then knight takes h6. So that means the queen can't take... So that means that if in this position, white plays bishop takes f7, black cannot respond with queen takes bishop. Black, therefore... I say therefore. And I need to remember... I've taken so far a piece for a pawn, and that's been it. So let's say the king moves to h8. I can then recapture an exchange simply by taking off the queens and taking the rook. But I don't know if there might be something stronger.
Well, you could take the rook first.
That would be stronger. So that puts me in exchange up.
Yeah, an exchange and 2 pawns up.
I haven't taken on h6 yet, though. Where's the second pawn?
The original h6 pawn plus the f7 pawn.
Oh, yes, of course, on f7. Yeah. So that... Okay, so that's... Well, that's winning.
Yeah.
But because I know, especially with the last problem, you were particularly sneaky, there may or may not be something that's more winning. So I should probably double check that there isn't a mate somewhere. The bishop just makes black position solid enough that even if I am winning, I find it really hard to spot any mating motifs there.
It'd be kind of surprising if it wasn't bishop 8, f7 or knight h6 here. So what does all this mean, John? Like, let's say we've calculated a winning line.
So... That means that if we head back to where black made the last critical decision, we need to take a look at whether bishop g7 is the only move black can play.
Okay.
So black can also play king h8. And it looks really ropey, but there's no, there's no pin or skewer here. So maybe that's a safer move than bishop g7. And white's queen's on pre, so you have to move the queen. You can't take the pawn on h6, of course. So where does white go? I think the most direct answer is to play bishop takes pawn, threatening mate on g8, and I think black is forced to respond with either queen takes bishop, which we all know is losing, or bishop g7. Because those are the only moves that I think prevent mate immediately. So do we then get a... Oh, does this just go to variations on a theme then? Because then we've got the knight back into f5, and I'm cheating a little bit because I'm analysing while moving the pieces on the board. We've got knight f5. I'm going to try and do the rest of this in my head. Then the queen out to f6, as we previously discussed. Although... Okay, so the queen can go to f6 or f8. I'm assuming f6 because that way if black swaps the queens off and forces a tempo, white has to either basically it relieves the pressure. Whether or not it loses in exchange remains to be seen. Whereas f8 doesn't quite do as much. So I'm going to assume queen f6. And then I think we're back to the same story, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's a direct transposition even.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same thing if he goes queen f8.
There's no real difference.
You take on e8, rook takes, and then you can go knight takes g7. And black can't recapture because the rook on e8 hangs. If he took on g7, then the rook would hang.
Oh, yeah, and if you play queen g8, you just play queen takes rook.
Well, yeah, but...
Yeah.
We've got a lot of material.
Okay, so does that mean that by accident or otherwise, we've stumbled upon the solution with our first candidate move of the evening?
I don't know. Are you ready to play bishop takes h6, John? Well, is that... Maybe you can explain to everyone, what should you do before playing bishop takes h6?
I mean, I can't see any other critical lines where black's decision-making leads to him saving the position. So the only reason for me not to play bishop takes h6 would be if another line is more winning.
Okay.
So if I find another line that leads to a forced mate or something that wins me the queen for free or similar, then maybe I would play that instead. But otherwise, like, I now feel like bishop takes h6 is a winning position in the back pocket.
Okay. Do you want to play bishop takes h6?
Okay.
Alright, so how forcing a move is that?
Oh, stop it, Tom.
Oh, I mean, just out of interest.
It's give me material or take the bishop, right?
Well,
so I guess black can choose not to take it.
Black could choose not to take it. I mean, how many moves would it be worth considering for black other than recapturing? Because if it's a move like rook d8 or queen f6 or g6, then black's definitely going to be material down.
Sure.
So the only moves that are worth looking at for black are also forcing moves.
Oh god. So maybe we've got knight takes bishop here, which solves a lot of the problems that we had further down the line in our analysis.
That's certainly worth considering.
So white takes a pawn, black takes a piece, and then says, what are you going to do about this now? Oh. Well, in keeping in the same vein of being about as forcing as possible, I feel like knight f5 is the most forcing move here.
Uh-huh.
I don't even think bishop takes g7 is that forcing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to go with knight f5.
Okay, let's say queen e6. Seems like a nice sensible square to put the queen. Because let's not forget, at the moment black is technically a piece up.
And there's no bishop takes h7 to... Oh. I don't know.
It's not as easy without that bishop.
No, it's really not, is it? Like, the most forcing move white can play here is probably bishop takes pawn, because retreating it to any of these other squares don't really give any threats.
Yeah.
I'd consider rook e3. That could be fun.
It's spirited.
That's the only other move on the board I see which continues an attack.
Yeah. I think I'd want to be incredibly grown up here and go g6. Feels like a move that's going to prevent me from getting mated.
I can't not play rook g3.
Yeah, but it's not really clear you have a threat here. I mean, I could take your rook on a1. I'm sure a computer says that taking on a1 is sensible here. But the human in me wants to play bishop takes e4 and spoil your fun that way.
That does kind of spoil my fun.
It feels like white's running out of some steam here.
Yeah. That's not that great, is it?
So, the reason I chose this position, actually, is because bishop takes h6 is a really fascinating move. But actually, spoiler alert, it doesn't really work.
To what was arguably the most simple reply, but only if you looked on the other side of the board.
Sure. I mean, that's such a key bishop.
Okay.
So...
Well, that was the top suggestion, so at least I'm not alone in company.
But the interesting thing here is that you don't want to throw away the idea of bishop takes h6. It's a really good idea.
Well, no,
and we've got a whole bunch of useful follow-ups with knight f5 and queen g6.
So I've seen this with a lot of tactics before, where I try 2 or 3 different moves that end up not working, but the ideas behind the tactics I was trying to make work end up contributing in some way to the actual solution.
Yeah.
So if this is such a key bishop, and we definitely don't want to lose it, the only thing we can do is to force black to play moves that aren't capturing the bishop. And the way to do that would be to play... Well, bishop takes h6 is... Maybe this.
The problem with knight f5 is the most natural move. But the problem is that after queen f6, black has everything under control. We need to force the queen away from the defense of the king, and we're looking for a really clever move here, because contrary to what we would expect, and the reason I think this move, I don't know if anyone suggested it, very well done if you do, but the move played here is not a check or a capture, but it's a very, very pretty move.
I'm looking at 2 moves now.
Okay.
I'm looking at knight g6.
Okay.
And I'm looking at bishop g5.
Okay.
Knight g6 might run into the same problem with queen f6, but the reason I think it might hold promise is because it has the potential to remove the bishop on f8.
Okay.
But removing the bishop on f8 gives black a tempo to take back on b3. So the line I'm looking at is knight g6, queen f6, knight takes bishop, knight takes bishop, and I'm a little stuck.
Okay, that seems fair enough.
Bishop g5, you can't... Well, bishop g5... Ooh. Bishop g5, queen takes g5, queen takes f7 check, king h7, queen g8 checkmate, because the knight's covering g6.
Yeah, very good.
Pretty. And then bishop g5, hang on a second. This is funny. There are a bunch of people looking at the puzzle board going, what are these guys doing? Are they playing a game? It's awfully slow. So we've just put them with a link to the broadcast. Bishop g5, pawn takes g5. What does that lead to? Oh, God. Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Dude.
And there's
But. Oh. Oh dear.
Okay, so just show the queen takes line for the crowd as well. So this move is obviously worth...
And either of these, obviously.
Yeah.
Wow.
So bishop g5 obviously comes under consideration because it can't be taken. It's forced mate in either case. Right. So...
And it's... Oh yeah, that's just game over. Interestingly, on the analysis board, it doesn't show checkmate. But it shows checkmate at queen g8.
Well, knight g6 isn't checkmate. It's just forced mate.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
This is
so we
really
go back.
Pretty.
So we've done pretty much more. We've done more than half the work now, I reckon. Bishop g5. So
we can't recapture the bishop.
So where does his queen have to go?
So it's really tough for the queen to defend anything. f6 is out. e6 is out because the bishop is still there, which... which leaves d6 is like the only... Well, no, that's a lie, because d6 looks after h6, but then you remove... But then... Yeah, then white takes on f7, that's terrible. Because queen d6, queen takes f7 check, king h6, queen g8 is still checkmate. So it doesn't actually work. So the queen has to go to d7.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only move.
All right. Now you might think it's time to sack, but is there one more move we can do to bring our final piece into the game with tempo?
Rook a d1 now looks very, very obviously... Wait, hang on. Forcing move replies from black. Knight takes bishop, don't care. Pawn takes bishop, really don't care. Bishop takes pawn, don't care, I've got your queen. Queen takes rook. Don't care, I've got checkmate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, taking the queen is still pretty good there, but
Yeah.
checkmate tends to trump most things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always looking for the better finish.
Excellent.
And black has no decent move that isn't moving the queen, and all moves that involve moving the queen lose.
Almost.
No.
If he
don't no. Come on.
If he moves his queen, he loses. You can't let him take the queen. So
Threaten a queen back? What do you do if you threaten a queen back? Oh. You don't care very much.
We take it.
Yeah.
So no, not g6. So
that doesn't work.
a bit simpler. You don't want white to take the queen on d7.
Oh, great. We've got guys in the chat now going, took you long enough, John.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
You can't move the queen.
Yep. Maybe this?
Yeah, it's what you got to do. But now we've dragged the queen and the bishop away from defense of that king. It's looking as open as it ever has.
What critical role did that bishop play that I can now play around with? It's actually not that clear to me. So, one obvious move, or the obvious candidate move, is to play rook takes bishop anyway, but after pawn takes, where's the finish? Where's the grand finale for white? I don't know. Knight f5? Is still a possibility? But that's not very forcing.
Well, this is why we want to think back to earlier things we've already analysed.
Does the bishop takes h6 idea now work here because the bishop's gone from f8 then? So bishop takes h6.
Okay, so first we'll look at pawn takes, because this move seems the most forcing.
Yep. Well, pawn takes leads to very quick checkmate after queen g6 check, king somewhere, queen g7 checkmate.
You don't have a knight on f5 yet, but... So let's say king f8,
Oh,
for
I
example.
see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but without the bishop, this position's pretty dire for black. For example, queen takes...
Queen takes, king up.
Yeah. So if king g8, we've already seen the motif here. After king g8, where's the win going to be this time?
Knight g6.
Yeah, knight g6 is just forced mate. And if the king goes to
Because
e7,
here-
there are a whole bunch of lines that win here. But simplest is just to grab some material here. I mean, we've already got 2 pawns for the piece, so if we can just keep grabbing stuff.
What's the best way to continue? I mean, knight f5 check puts a lot of pressure on this.
Yeah.
But I wonder if I can make queen g5 check work. So after queen g5 check f6, can I follow up there with knight f5 check, king d8, queen takes, f6 check?
I mean, maybe, but you want to make it as simple as possible. You say knight f5 puts pressure on d6, but why not just knight f5 and then knight takes d6? Let's keep it simple.
Well, I mean, I guess, but... Oh, yeah, because... Yeah, that's just...
It's just crushing.
That's just crushing, yeah. So that works.
We win the queen, we win everything. So this line is not really realistically defendable for black.
Is there any... There's no other move here as well. So, okay. Which means that if black defends the... Well, if black prevents the queen from being taken like that, and black can't move the queen, then bishop takes h6 is winning, if pawn takes. Black can also play g6, and that leads to the same idea.
Okay. So
black can also leave it alone and play knight takes bishop.
Exactly. So this is what foiled us the first time around.
Yeah.
There was a bishop on f8 defending things. But now...
Suddenly... Knight f5 feels too slow because knight f5 bishop takes e4. And I feel like I can't mate anything fast enough.
There's also maybe knight f5 g6 doesn't look completely clear.
Yeah, it all gets a bit a move away from working. So the most forcing move, if something were to work here and continue, has to be bishop takes g7 because that threatens queen h8 mate. And the king is forced to take the bishop. After which knight f5 is a check. The only square for the king is king g8 because if king f8 then queen h8 is checkmate.
There's also king f6 which allows a different mate in one.
Oh. Mate in one, did you say?
Mate in one. Bishop g7, king g7, knight f5, king f6.
Queen h6, I think, is made in that position.
Yeah.
You have to cover both of those squares. So
the last line is king g8. I think you've got this now, John.
So knight takes b3, bishop takes, king takes, knight f5 check, king g8, and then that's just queen g5 check, and wherever the king goes, queen g7 check, mate.
Yeah, very good. Let's see it on the board.
So that should be, and all roads lead to checkmate from here.
Yeah, you can of course sack his queen here,
queen
but it's
f6,
hopeless.
of course. You've got that. Sacking the queen doesn't lead to very pretty things. And then king there, you just have the one extra move before that becomes checkmate.
Excellent.
So this was basically a mate in 7.
I mean, that's
these lines anyway.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Bloody hell, that was tough work.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, deliberately I choose very, very difficult positions because they lead to the most interesting discussion.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing I think about this line is how the move that jumps out at most people straight away is bishop takes h6. But the line itself doesn't quite work. But we don't want to throw all the analysis that we did on bishop takes h6 out the way. It's only because this pesky knight e3 line that it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
But once we manage to drive the queen and bishop away, then it turns out the attack is devastating. Having said that, bishop g5 is a pretty move on its own.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And just very, very, very tricky to spot. So on a lot of levels, it's a very difficult puzzle, but it's one of my favourites. And it's one of the favourites that I've shared with many students over the years.